Good afternoon, everyone. This is Debbie Royce, AYCDC's Corporate Secretary. I'd like to welcome everyone to this afternoon's meeting. Before we formally begin, I would ask that everyone please mute your phone unless you are beginning to speak. And as we have our directors joining by video today, we'll do a quick roll call before we get started. Acting Chair Daniel Coomer.
Here.
Julian Beckford.
Here.
Drew Gabriel.
Here.
Jennifer James, were you able to join us? Okay, Tamara McCaw.
Here.
Cy Richardson.
Present.
Essel Tyus, were you able to join us? Gib Coney, were you able to join? Deborah Young.
Here.
And Lee Warshevsky. Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining today. And Chair Coomer, we have our quorum present, so you can begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's nice to see everybody here today, and I welcome everyone to today's meeting of the AYCDC Board. Before we formally begin, I'd like to note for the record that I'll be the acting chair for today's meeting. I also would like to extend a warm welcome to our two newest board members, Drew Gabriel and Deborah Young. Very briefly, I'm told that they're both members of Community Board 8, and that Drew is a vice president at CAMBA, and prior to that, he led the community engagement team for the Brooklyn DA's office. Deborah Young, again, also a member of CB8, is also a member of the Crown Heights North Neighborhood Association. So welcome. I think I should also note that let me just confirm in terms of who appointed Deborah and Drew, but I have that somewhere in my materials. Maybe they could provide that information themselves.
Yes, I was appointed by Senator Zelma Myrie.
Okay, and Drew?
I was appointed by the governor's office.
Okay, thanks. So we're glad to have you on board, and look forward to having you join us in our work here on the board. So I now call to order the meeting of the directors of the Atlantic Yards Community Development Corporation for Monday, December 13th, 2021. Before we get started, remind everyone to please mute your video and your phones until you're ready to speak. And also, for the record, I'll ask that anyone wishing to speak, please be sure to state your name before you begin. I'd further like to note for the record that as authorized by recently passed legislation, this meeting will be conducted by video and teleconference. Also note for the record that the public was given an opportunity to comment on today's agenda by submitting their written comments by 4:30 p.m. on Friday. It's my understanding that no comments were received from the public in that regard. The directors have received the meeting materials in advance of today's meeting and are free to ask questions at any time. Before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I'd like to ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflict of interest with respect to any of today's agenda items. If so, please make an appropriate disclosure on the record at this time. Then we can be sure that you can recuse yourselves from any discussion or vote with regard to such items. Is there any comment in that regard? Hearing none, I'd now like to call on Marion Phillips to provide us with his president's report. This item is being presented for your information only. No vote will be required. Marion, please take it away when you're ready.
Thank you, Daniel, and good afternoon, everyone. We do welcome Drew and Deborah to the board. Looking forward to working with you, and Deborah, looking forward to meeting you. Our report today is pretty brief, but we're going to highlight where we are in terms of what's going on, the project moving forward. As you note that the 2022 schedule has been put out. I hope all of you will be able to make those meetings as this project continues. I'm going to ask Scott Solish at the end of my portion of this portion of the report, really to highlight where the project is in terms of what's going on with Site 5. For the newer members, Site 5 is the Modell's and the PC Richards site. As many of you have known over the years, this has been under some litigation that has been resolved by the development team and PC Richards, and we're looking forward to an update on the project in the coming months, if not a year, just see where the developer is so that we can begin a community engagement process. And may I say quite an extensive community engagement process. Scott will also update us on sites B12 and B13, site B4 and site B15. And the B4 site is a moment of where we all can pause to be quite grateful or appreciative. Yeah, that's the better word, appreciative, to the fact that the arena block will be completed with completion of site 4. And he'll also speak to the affordable housing lotteries. And then Toby will come in after that and really speak to the quality of life meetings and other engagement that has been going on. Other than that, my report is very brief, I told you today. Once Scott finishes his portion, Toby completes her portion, then I will come back and we'll go through questions and answers of the directors. So Scott, if you would update us, please.
Sure. Thank you, Marion, and good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone can hear me okay. Happy holidays and welcome to the new members. Very exciting time at Pacific Park, as Marion alluded to, despite the interesting and challenging working environment over the past year and a half, which we've all been muddling through. We've been able to make a lot of great progress throughout the project, both on behalf of Greenland Forest City, the master project developer, and our partners at the Brodsky Organization and TF Cornerstone, who are also part of the development team now. Starting with the most advanced project at B15, which is on 6th Avenue between Pacific Street and Dean Street. That building is substantially complete. It now has residents occupying multiple apartments throughout the building. The affordable housing lottery for that building has been launched and is underway, along with our affordable housing partners at Metropolitan Housing Association, who we refer to as Manny. And most importantly, to me at least, that is also the site of the future Department of Education school, new middle school that will be built by the SCA. So the core and shell of that school has been completed. The turnover of that core and shell space to the SCA will happen sometime, hopefully by the end of this year. And then the SCA will take over the construction of that new public middle school that will be built as part of the SCA and DOE's capital plan. Across the street, or diagonal.
Scott, can I just apologize for interrupting you? Is there a way we can put the PowerPoint, share the screen so that people can have a better sort of visual sense of which buildings we're talking about? I don't know if that's technically possible.
I don't believe. Good afternoon. This is Toby Jaisim. I don't believe we'd set up to be able to share screen during the meeting, so apologies for that, but we'll take that into consideration for the next director's meeting. We'd share the presentation in advance, but we'll coordinate for the next meeting to be able to share.
Okay. All right. I think we should try to do that.
Yes, we will. Apologies for that, and be sure to take that into consideration. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, and I'm dialed into the meeting. So
yeah, I know. I realized you couldn't do it, but I thought maybe there'd be a way.
Sure. Across diagonal from B15 is the project known as B4, which is the large building on the corner of Atlantic Avenues and 6th Avenues. As Marion mentioned, this is the final, this is likely to be the final project on the arena block. So this is this project will hopefully have its first temporary certificate of occupancy before the end of this year. We're working with the Department of Buildings now on finalizing all the necessary paperwork, which will then allow for families and individuals to move into the building starting in January of 2022. So a very exciting way to start the new year. This building was affordable housing lottery. It will hopefully also launch this month. We're working with HPD in terms of finalizing all the necessary paperwork, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to activate that housing lottery this calendar year as well, which would allow for the affordable units to start being occupied in the first quarter of 2022. So those are the two most advanced construction projects altogether. About 1,250 total new apartments, 30% of which would be affordable, working with HPD in terms of their lottery process. Then moving down the street to Block 1129, apologies, a map would be very helpful here. So we have two completed buildings, 535 Carlton and 550 Vanderbilt, but in between those two are what we refer to as B12 and B13. Those buildings are being developed by TF Cornerstone, and those buildings excitingly reached the topping out of their superstructure component just last week. So expect all concrete work in those buildings to finish this year. Then they'll transition quickly to working on the facade and window program, as well as working on the building's mechanical systems and residential apartments. So we're hopeful that progress will continue at this excellent pace and that they will be substantially complete sometime in the second quarter of 2023. And myself and Toby and Marion and the team from TF Cornerstone will continue to keep everyone up to date in terms of that schedule, if they're able to improve the timing of the delivery of those apartments and commercial space. Also, that would happen before the second quarter of 2023, but that's currently the planned date for substantial completion of those projects. Another critical component of that substantial completion is that the open space on Block 1129 will be completed. So the biggest, really connecting the existing open spaces that have been built next to 535 Carlton and 550 Vanderbilt, and more than doubling the total amount of open space that will be available for the public and owned and operated by the Pacific Park Conservancy. So that will add additional kids' playground areas, a dog park, more seating and landscaping, as well as a main lawn feature that will be available for picnicking and more passive recreation uses, and not meant to be any kind of active ball field. But all that is going to be completed in 2023 and open to the public. So that is the current activity in terms of construction. One building is substantially complete. One building will open for residents in January of 2022, and hopefully be substantially completed in the second quarter of 2022. And two buildings just reached their topping out and will be substantially complete in about 18 months from now in 2023. I'll pause there and see if there are any questions in terms of construction activity of those four buildings.
All right, thank you, Scott.
Wait, I saw Drew. Did you have a question? Just have to unmute yourself.
Yes. More technical questions, just because he may have mentioned it, but I didn't hear how many new apartments were going to be on site. We're going to be on the B15 site.
B15 is 312 total apartments.
And what portion affordable?
30% of the apartments are affordable, so I think that's 93 affordable apartments.
Anybody else have a question? I have one. Nobody else has one.
Just have one more question.
Absolutely. What, this is,
For the proposed school, was there a timeline by School Construction Authority for when that would be completed?
I don't have the completion schedule of when they expect to complete it. I know that they are continually working on their schedules and based upon their overall capital planning and resource allocation. But I do know that the space has been completed per their core and shell requirements, and they're just working on the kind of the acquisition of that, the takeover of that space, so that they can advance their own plans. I know that design work has been underway for many years. So, but in terms of their final schedule, when it's going to be open, that I don't know. And they don't open schools in the middle of a school year, so I think a lot of it is based upon their final schedule. The impact in terms of supply chain and logistics challenges that we've all been struggling with throughout many industries, but especially construction, and then how that would play into their own bid out schedule and opening schedule.
Thank you.
Scott, I couldn't help but note your qualification when you were talking about the arena block that B4 was likely the last construction. Is that because there is a lingering question mark with respect to B1?
So I think that's safe to say. I mean, obviously, I can transition now to the Site 5 update, and then we can go back, and I'm happy to answer any questions about anything related to the project or anything else.
Okay, why don't we do that?
But as Marion pointed out, there had been this litigation between PC Richards and Forest City for many years regarding a portion of the Site 5 project that was owned by PC Richards, stretching back to before, stretching back to before Greenland or Greenland Forest City became involved in the project. I am happy to say that that litigation was resolved this year, which cleared up the ability to kind of move forward with thinking about the opportunities regarding Site 5 and B1 and the Arena Plaza, which are all part of the general project plan for Atlantic Yards Pacific Park. That's the good news. The good news that we can now kind of move forward. This has been something that's been on our to-do list for many years, stretching back to my involvement at Greenland and Greenland Forest City in 2014. There's been nothing formally decided other than, it's allowed us to begin thinking about in earnestness a timing and a process to consider potential opportunities and development potential for the Site 5 site, including the preservation of that open space in front of the Arena Plaza, which is intended to be the B1 site under the general project plan. So, we've raised the idea before of looking at ways to preserve that plaza and eliminate the B1 site, and seeing the potential of using Site 5 as a place to put some of that B1 development opportunity in order to preserve the plaza. And now that litigation's been cleared up and the development could potentially move forward, that's something that we hope to do in the next calendar year and begin those discussions and understand that community engagement process to consider potential changes and updates to that development plan. Obviously, that would mean that the B4 site, as Marion said, would be the final site on the arena block. The arena block would be finished with that open space in front of the Arena Plaza, the subway station, the subway entrance that's there now, and then the 3 buildings that surround it. And then development would happen on Site 5 as well as on the platform site.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Are there
Is there
other
any-
questions? I'm
Any other
sorry,
questions?
I'm sorry, Damon.
Go ahead.
No, I'm good. I'm waiting. Okay.
All right,
Toby,
since
if you-
there aren't any other questions, I think we can move to the community relations update. Is that what's next?
Yes.
Good afternoon, directors. Toby Jaisimi, thank you for participating in this afternoon's meeting. Just wanted to run us through quickly some community relations updates. There's been 4 virtual quality of life meetings since we last met as a board. The meeting format continued to be virtual. I know that there's been some questions as to whether or not there will be consideration for in-person meetings or hybrid meeting format. Through this year, the meetings have been virtual, just to again allow for continued consideration for the public health measures that are in place. Any updates with regards to changes to the meeting format will of course be distributed to the community, as well as the full schedule for the 2022 quality of life meetings. The last 4 meetings, we're going to provide an overview of some of the discussion topics and the issues that have been brought to our attention. As Scott alluded to in part of his presentation, updates with regards to the affordable housing obligations and the lottery application for the towers. The affordable housing lottery application for B15 is actually now open, and information on that lottery was shared with the directors and is also available on the project materials that were posted with today's meeting. So that lottery is open through January, and the applications can be requested by mail as well for those who may not have the ability to submit the application online. There was questions with regards to the B15 DOE middle school. There was a request for participation by a representative from the School Construction Authority. Unfortunately, that representative wasn't able to participate in the meeting at the last minute, but a number of questions that were raised by the community were addressed. And we've committed to ongoing coordination with both the SCA, the School Construction Authority, and also the Department of Education closer to when we expect that the building would come online to be able to answer the community's questions with regards to pickup and drop-off, coordination for deliveries, and the operations of the school. There were also, of course, a discussion related to traffic conditions and traffic enforcement regulations, including changes to parking signage, alternate side of the street parking regulations, parking signage that may have been posted related to temporary changes or temporary loss of parking spaces for specific scopes of work at the construction site. There was some discussion with regards to neighborhood cleanliness, the stretch along Atlantic Avenue, facing the Long Island Railroad site. Also, questions with regards to construction activity and permitted hours of operation. There was one concern and complaint that was raised with regards to the use of air horns at the B12 and B13 site. The air horns were used as a form of a safety measure when the cranes were in operation earlier in the year. The construction team would use air horns to notify the on-ground construction workers that the crane was picking materials overhead, and that was critically important to make sure that all workers were on alert. Of course, the air horns proved to be a disturbance to the community. The construction team reached out to the Department of Buildings to discuss the best construction safety measure and practices in place to ensure that the workers' safety was being met. And while there were no alternatives that were able to be considered, the construction team did direct the staff to minimize the use of the air horns and to limit when the air horns would be blasted so as to reduce the impacts to the community. Questions with regards to the timeline for the Long Island Railroad platform construction, the B5 construction timeline, the Site 5 condemnation and B1 transfer proposal, which Scott just spoke to as well, and also the Barclay Center operations, as well as the Social Justice Fund updates, which was established sometime last year. There were updates that were provided by the Barclay Center operations team related to that effort as well. So this is just a general overview of some of the key questions and issues that have come up We expect, like I noted earlier, that the full 2020-2022 meeting schedule will be distributed at the end of this month. Continue to, at least in the immediate future, hold the meetings in a virtual format until conditions allow for either in-person or some form of hybrid meeting as well. I'm happy to take questions if there's specific questions related to the quality of life meetings or any community relations concerns that have come up as well.
Hi, everyone. This is Ethel Tias. I have a question. I am presuming that this organization's meetings are covered by the state open meetings law. And if that's the case, why are we getting instructions not to share the meeting link? And can you advise on whether invitations were sent to the general public, for instance, past directors' meetings attendees?
So Ethel, this is Marion. Thank you and good afternoon. There are 3 emails that go out. One goes out directly to the directors, and the information that went to the directors is for you exclusively to be able to Zoom in. Then there is one that goes to staff for them to dial in and other participants who are dialing in. Then there's an email and it's posted on our website and it's sent out as a notice, a press notice, that all members of the public can join the webinar via our website, and it's webcast like all ESD meetings and sub-meetings and agency meetings are. They're all webcast and all members of the public are able to join in. So what you're receiving is one that says not to forward. That email is directed only to the directors for them to be able to join in via Zoom. All meetings are current with the New York State open meetings law based on the executive order issued by this governor that expires at the end of this year. And based on what she was saying regarding other issues related to COVID and other guidelines that they'll be providing, I would assume that this executive order will be extended again.
Thank you, Marion. Can you tell from your perch how many people are in attendees, not just us participants here?
I believe Debbie can, but if not, we can ask our service and we can get that put.
Yeah, thanks for asking that, Ethel, because I was wondering that myself. Because I mean,
well, Dan, I have an answer already. 14
Okay.
people have joined. 14 people have joined the meeting.
That's participants. I'm talking about attendees, people who are not members of the board, Marion.
Oh, this is everyone who's dialed in. And the people who are looking. Debbie, is this everyone dialed in or just webcast?
so I'm seeing a note in the chat that says 5
It's
on
both.
YouTube.
Yeah, it's both on video and dialed in.
Okay. And so,
So
we
the
don't,
5
we
on
can't-
YouTube are members of the public who have joined?
They're viewing from the website, yes.
Right, and do you, if assuming any of them had submitted public comments, and I'm going to have something to say on that in a minute, do you have the ability to kind of promote them into this web, into this Zoom meeting so that we can hear their questions or comments?
So we're not accepting public comments except by writing by ESD. ESD is not accepting public comments other than in writing 24 hours or the previous business day prior.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marion. I have one last question. There were questions previously, I guess it's almost a year ago now, about the likely inability of the contractor to meet its deadlines on opening certain buildings. Gib Vaconi was tracking it very carefully. He's not here now. I was depending on him to bring that forward. Marion, can you speak to that?
In terms of the affordable housing units?
Yes.
So when these 4 buildings that the developer mentioned today, B4, B12, 13, and 15 are completed, they will be around 60% of the total goal. The goal still is 2025. They're working towards that goal. They have not approached ESD about changing that goal. And so at this point, we believe they will meet their goal. If not, as you all know, there are penalties in our agreements, and we'll, obviously execute those penalties when appropriate.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So, Marion, going back to the public comment issue we were just talking about, I mean, I think that this body actually has a somewhat different role than the ESD board itself, and that as having been created sort of as a vehicle for receiving input from the community about this project. And I personally would, maybe we can just deal with this. If we can't deal with it today, then I'd like to, with respect to the next meeting, that we set a deadline for submitting public comments, but that if somebody misses that deadline but takes the trouble and the time out of their day to show up for this meeting as a member of the general public and wants to address this body, that we have some flexibility, that the chair have some flexibility and prerogative to allow people to speak up, notwithstanding their having not submitted in advance, and that we figure out a way to do that technologically so that they can be promote the word that our CB6 director always uses is promoting them into the Zoom so that they can address the board. I think I think it would serve this body to have some further flexibility in that regard.
So it's ESD senior staff that I am a part. We have met probably 8 times on this very subject. Obviously, we have various subs as well as the ESD board, and we're trying to figure out what is the best way to do this. Right now, if we receive public comments, we post them on our website. We share them with the directors. We've gone through various machinations. Do we read the documents? Do we summarize? And we did take into account that this board is very different, and that this board is the only board we have that actually has a set public comment period, whereas all the other boards have comment period following each action item. So we're really trying to work through what is the best way to do that. And we're also trying to work through, which I hope you all can appreciate, the fact that going forward, hybrid may be the reality and not just in person or
That's
not
right.
just Zoom. So we're trying to hedge our bets and get ahead of the curve and try to figure it out. So that's where we are, Daniel. So I will let everyone know, and I've said it before in all of our other meetings, that this is a concern. Without anyone having to tell me, I know it's a concern. And we're trying to figure out how to do this across the board, all of our boards. So I think I would love to say stay tuned, and see what we do next year. But I think we'll have some answers sooner than by the end of the year.
Yeah,
going
I
into
would
next year.
I would hope to have this sort of sorted out before our next meeting, so that, because, it would be a shame if somebody took the time out of their day to attend the meeting and then was told that they couldn't comment because they had, missed a deadline that they might not have been aware of for advanced submission.
Oh, no, thank you. And I will, again, take that back. And I will assume most of you, if not all of you, have that same sentiment. So I will represent that in my next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Okay, so I want to thank you for the updates. As noted on the agenda, we would have ordinarily proceeded to public comments, but we did not receive any from the general public, and therefore, there being no comments, I want to thank the directors and everyone attending for your participation in today's meeting, and again, welcome to our newest members of the board. And there being no further business, I would call for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. Have a great holiday season.